So once again, welcome to the Anthropos Songs of Humanity Cave Concert Watch Party. My name is Jaka. I'm currently in Slovenia. I'm here with Kate, Sylvia, plus family, and Guillermo. We're very excited to be here. Let's unmute Anthropos so we can say something. I would like to maybe start just with Guillermo because we're in this environment and you've brought us together. What would you like to share in this moment before we begin?
I am so happy and so excited to be sharing this with you all. I'm so grateful that so many people from all around the world are with us. This, I think this recording was on some level a culmination of a process of learning and preparing for it, but also a beginning of a different way of understanding performance and making music. So it was a big revelation for us. So I'm very happy that it's out there and that you're going to be able to see it and to see how it makes you feel.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you that don't know, this was recorded in Slovenia at Županova cave, which is near the capital, Ljubljana. We had a residency there last August, not just by ourselves, also with fellow dance artists. We're going to talk about that later. And as part of it, we were able to visit the cave multiple times and do a full concert with a full audience. So then, Kate or Sylvia, how was the actual experience? Just briefly before we hear it, what are the most important things that people can kind of, I don't know, keep track of, or how was it for you in a few words to set the scene?
Thought just now, even before you asked that question, that it was just really a very special experience. I don't think I've ever been in a space like the cave, and that whole week was very special because we got to experiment so much with movement and bring our practice that has, like ripened over quite a few years now, and the way we've grown together to expand that and allow ourselves as singers to move and like engage the whole body. It was really special. And then to go into this cave and wander through this outer worldly experience is very immersive. And I just really starkly remember the smell and just like, I don't know, it just like completely wraps you in this space. And it was gorgeous to sing in it because the acoustic is just wonderful. So I hope that you can feel that a little bit in this video. Very happy to share that with you all today.
I'll add that when you're improvising, you're in that very moment taking inspiration from everything in your life and also where you are in that moment. So space is hugely important, I feel, for the music that comes out of you in that moment. Space being, if you're in a concert hall or in this case in a cave. And also, the feeling that you get from the audience, from the other people in the space. And the cave was fascinating in that it is just not a typical place to perform, obviously. And, there were bats. I remember walking out one time and there was a bat flying in front of us the whole time. And we were just like, trying to get our way out. So it was a really fascinating research to see how that unique space would seep into our music. And so it was a question for us. It was a question for me as well to see what happens when we take this music that we feel is very connected to the elements. It's very connected to archetype and connected to our ancestors, and how does it actually transform or deepen or ripen when we're in an actual cave where our ancestors probably did sing. So it was a deep research.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I think we're more or less ready. I would say that if you have headphones, this might be a good moment to get them in case you want to be really close to our sound. Of course, we're going to watch the video as well, but we just welcome you to experience this anyway. Stay with the screen, go from the screen, lie down, whatever you feel like doing. It's going to be 40 minutes long. So I'm now going to unmute and kind of share it. Before we do so, anything from Anthropos to be said? Okay, so maybe just one big stretch so that we Soften our bodies. Inhale, exhale. Sit bones, wiggling toes and fingers and so on. Okay, so once again, thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the other side. Just to say that the chat is always there for your reflections, and also at the end, we're going to take it slow as we transition outside of the underworld. So, welcome to Županova Jama. Okay, the concert is finished. We're slowly gonna transition back. Give yourself the time that you need. If you're away from the screen, you don't need to return to the screen straight away. Just a couple moments just for some breaths before we say anything else. Hmm. Yeah, returning to your body, returning to your space, gently. Ah, slowly opening your eyes if they were closed. While we're in these special moments of listening, I wanted to just mention a couple of people that were so instrumental in making this concert happen. There was Damian Virshik from the local society, the tourist society, who allowed us to use the space. You might have seen a special guest in the second part, Zvezdana Novakovic's van. There was Dejan Ulaga, who shot the whole concert on camera. And of course, everyone that was there with us in the cave, and some of you are also here tonight. So thank you for being with us on both occasions. For us, this gathering and this concert was also about allowing Anthropos to be more visible in the world and in the online sphere. So for that purpose, I am pasting a couple of links in the chat for now, for later. So you can connect with us. They're going to stay there, and we're going to remind you of them. Of course, the chat is there also for your impressions. What you have seen has not been edited. It was the full, how to say, first and second third of the concert. There was a circle sing that happened afterwards that you haven't seen, but also that will be posted on our YouTube channel shortly. And also this, what you have seen, this part will be posted there. And we're also going to be releasing a live album with the music that you have heard and with other bits of our time in the cave. And of course, all of it is completely improvised, and we can talk about how that happens or happened later on. If you want to support what we do, the first link in the chat links to our Bandcamp, where for now you will find our first EP from the pandemic, and you can buy it there. And you can also add more to the suggested price if you want to make a donation to the project, which means that we can gather more and do more improvised music. And then there are Instagram links, Facebook links, and YouTube links if you use those platforms or if you'd want to see more, and also our website. And thank you to those first comments in the chat. And we will remind you of the links later on. And as you've registered for this, you're also going to be added to our newsletter and receive some updates shortly, especially when the full Cave album is on Bandcamp. Oh. Okay. Dear Anthropos members, please feel free to unmute anything that you would like to share at this stage before we sing.
I'll just share that that was also my first time watching it and only maybe second time listening to it. So I was like, oh, interesting. Because it's improvised, so you don't remember.
And how was it?
I I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Very good. Oh, thank you for the comments and the appreciation of this and what's coming. Another dimension beyond space and time. Seems it comes from ancient ages and yet completely timeless, beautiful and sublime and wow is the current say and word on the street. Okay, so we thought that now might be a good time to wiggle our bodies and voices and to share a little bit of what we've been doing since the pandemic, which is practicing online, singing on Zoom. We have at some point transitioned also to using other platforms for better audio, but a lot of the times we just sing on Zoom. I don't think we're going to get too technical today, but I think we just wanted a moment of music that is from the now for this experience for you, for us and to also allow you to sing from your home. So you would still be muted for now, but this is a moment where you might be able to let go of any wires and frames, step into the space, move with us as your body wants to move, and sing with us for just a short time. And then, just so you know, we're going to share some more material later on and have time for your questions. So we are here for at least another 30, 40 minutes. Okay. Anything else from Guillermo or Sylvia beyond unmuting and preparing your headphones?
I'm just so happy to be sharing this, and I didn't listen to it very much, and what touched me is the sense of the space and how beautiful and how sacred it feels, the space and the possibility to sing there. I found that really moving.
Yeah, I also enjoyed all the extra sounds of the water in the space and all the people rustling, people shuffling, footsteps and jackets and everything that was heard. Since there was one mic that was always traveling with the audience from the first hall to the next, and one mic that was close to us. So you could also hear, yeah, the people sounds as they were watching. Okay, shall we sing? See what happens for at least a couple of minutes. And Kate and Silvia can unmute and Guillermo as well. And if you are, yeah, just witnessing at any point, feel free to sing in your space, move around your space, be with us in any way that feels comfortable. Or type.
No, I'm closing everything.
Okay.
Typing.
Oh.
There we are.
Yes, and also people are commenting on the filming of the stone. And yes, like a lot of credit goes to Dayan, for instance, because he hasn't really been in the cave. He just walked straight in and then was an audience member at the same time as he was filming with one camera. And same to Zvezdana, which we only kind of started singing together on the day. So they were all kind of thrown in this beautiful underworld environment with us. And we're ready to go whenever Guillermo and Silvia are able to unmute. Let's sing. Sì. Trek oi, trek to. Trek to oi ko. Oi to tek assim. So young.
somebody yanda basuke Gambazin patu uyala mendiana
Chica.
Garo salo
Chica.
Malaysi Bolaisi Garo se
Chica. 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 Chica.
Netatuta, kai, go.
Chichica. Chichica. We still have it, I think. Let's see what the people say. I had a great time. Ah.
Having flashbacks to the era of every week singing on Zoom. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
But it still kind of works. And it is true that we started meeting before the pandemic, but then we really developed a lot of our sound during the pandemic. Maybe Guillermo, do you want to say something about that and how it was to sing today?
I think the pandemic taught us to listen so deeply and caringly, even though some of the details would be missed, to really put our full heart in the listening. And it personally taught me to make a lot more space. It was a great antidote to getting very busy or saying too much. And that I really felt the first time we came back together and we sang in person after singing in Zoom. I'm like, wow, we have changed, and how something that we could have filed as a complete disaster taught us something. So that, I mean, that in itself taught me a lot about learning and potential, because it was a really difficult situation for our budding vocal ensemble not to be able to make a chord together, and yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to
Yes.
say like it's I just remember how so much in the improv work is about acceptance of what is happening to you and what is coming out, and then like not being so overly critical. And I think when I started out, I was very judging of myself and of what's happening in the moment, and always evaluating. And I think Zoom helped immensely, because it just, my perception of what was happening on was always so different to what everyone else would experience at the same time. And there was no exact right. There was no ability to nail it. There was just this morphing being that we created in the space between us, and that was good and right whichever way it arrived in the different places, and there was a beauty in that. And I felt it immensely freeing, actually. I let go of a lot of my own bullshit, if I may put it so bluntly.
Thank you, Sylvia. I would say that we are definitely ready for your questions if you have them. So if you're listening, you are very welcome to pose a question in the chat or to raise your hand, which you can do by going to the bottom toolbar and press raise hand. And we're going to ask you to unmute, because otherwise we're going to just kind of keep discussing the concert. I think there might be some other points to cover about how that actually happened, maybe so kind of pre-planning and so on. So Benedict was asking if there's no delay when you sing. There is a delay, but you don't feel it as much. It's almost, I think it's about the technique of it, really. So it's
Yes,
about the
yeah.
technique of making those silences longer, of breaking up your singing in a different way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Guillermo, you can maybe speak to that, how that
See, I
shifted.
would say there is, I mean, there are some things we discover, which is to slow things down, to learn to listen to the strong beats and the empty beats without trying to make up a timeline, but yet it was very clear this thing about accent and energy. And then I suppose there's also a capacity for the brain to adjust to the glitches, to accommodate things. You almost feel and hear what the person wanted to do, even though it arrived to you in a different time. So for me, a lot of the time is that intuition as well.
I was also going to say, I think it is a lot of it is, I felt wasn't about thinking about timing in itself, but thinking about relating. So it really helped me to basically piggyback to anything I did in time. I would only ever relate to what I was hearing, rather than thinking about, oh, here's the pulse or something, because that just doesn't really work.
Yeah, and then a different sharing of the pulse and maybe one person holding it, which is something that we also demonstrate in the previous pieces, how maybe someone had a stable rhythmical part and there were lots of other things happening in between. And otherwise, as Silvia said, there's kind of piggybacking maybe of someone creating a part with a long pause, and then you can answer in that pause and then wait for them to say their first part, and then you go after you hear and create your second part, and so on.
Yes, something else is coming up, I'm remembering now, which is about the beauty of singing off time, or of somebody giving something that is in time as a context, but then singing out of time. I think Zoom really liberated me from that, for thinking what's right and what's wrong, and to just to open the possibility to sing off time.
Also rhythmically open. Yes, feel free to raise your hand if you have a question specifically about the performance, but I think maybe this is a good point to share another video, yeah, to have a little break. So there's a 3-minute video that we also want to share with you, which is from the forest outside of the cave. So this was filmed, I'm not sure if it was even the same day, but I think it was the day before, if I'm not mistaken, one day before the concert on a Thursday, and the concert was on a Friday. And this was with 3 guest movement artists, Neja Pele, Sara Janashkovic, and Lara Matea Ivancic. And it's also a full improvisation. And we just wanted to also share this with you before it actually gets uploaded on our YouTube channel. So yes, Guillermo.
Perhaps to say that we spent time with the 3 of them playing and practicing before we did that video. We spent 2-3 days playing in nature and singing, and we moved and they sounded, and we did quite a beautiful exchange before that was captured.
Yes, which definitely also helped to a sense of connection, even though we were actually spread out in the forest itself. So let's see that all muted 3 minutes and then come back, and maybe some other cave questions will emerge in the meantime. Wow, I'm spaced out again. But yes, all fully improvised with little effects and sort of two microphones that are out of sync intentionally to kind of create a couple more layers. Santiago is asking in the chat, how do you think the place affects your voices? Because I think we definitely felt very different in that environment, especially in the cave. So I would really want to hear from any of you in terms of what changed in the singing, the experience, or now that you watched back, what do you think is the effect between the space itself and our singing?
I mean, the first thing that's coming to my mind is thinking about proximity and how our voices would you would make a tiny sound in the cave and it would travel really far. And so it was really interesting to play with very quiet sounds. And then to contrast that with when you do go big, how reverberant that becomes. And in the forest, as a contrast, that sense of like being able to send your voice through, because they were tall, tall trees, and you could feel like your voice could go somewhere, that you were speaking to someone like in the other valley. So yes, I'm playing with this echo, with how far the voice traveled, with the quality of intensity that you could use, and also just how your voice would come back to you was interesting to explore and play with. And I think that's the key, is that it almost feels like the space is the fifth member, sixth member, how many people you're singing with. And they also, the space also speaks back to you, and you're in a dialogue with the space,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
imaginatively as well as sonically.
I definitely felt that as well. And it definitely felt like the most productive environment for us in terms of our awareness of archetypes and how we sound together, that basically it felt almost like being at home in the cave. So the environment felt easeful and intimate, and there was a lot of sounds for the environment, but for me it was easier to inhabit, our sound and the way we make music together. And it felt like actually all the extra sounds were helping us on the way, and that we were in a womb-like, environment really. So it was kind of protected as well, and it was easier to feel the, I guess, the passing of time, because the cave itself, right? Like it takes millions of years for it to be formed. So it was easier to let go of the human timeline and just exist somewhere else with more space in our beings, I felt.
I mean, it's a very different feeling than when we've performed on like a jazz venue or something like that, where you're in this sort of man-made constructed space with microphones. You have to conjure everything from within to get us into that space. And there's something so generous about being in nature and being able to sing directly from those sources of inspiration. It's just like, oh, you just let go into it.
Yeah, and I think it's also something that you then carry with you. I find after the concert, it's much easier for me to really be with the memory, and the memory is really alive. And then you can transport that into a place that is more man-made. It kind of, you feel more resourced. At least I do. Anything to add, Guillermo? Good. And we lost Sylvia momentarily, but she's back. Anything to add, Sylvia? Oh, she's back and she will share.
Yeah, I guess what Kate was saying, like, that just it's just so different in the woods. And like actually we were quite far apart at times, and you really had to listen very carefully to stay connected, which in the cave, of course, you're in this beautiful wash of reverb, and it's a lot easier. And I think, I mean, a very human experience. I was really distracted by mosquitoes doing that. But it's all part of it. So it's okay. It sounds amazing, and it sounds very different to what I remember or what I felt in the moment. I think it's a lovely mix.
Yeah, that one is more enhanced than the cave one. The
Yeah.
cave one really is as is, and it's wonderful with the natural reverb. Yes. I would say that I'm gonna repost our links in the chat, because really this is for us quite a momentous year. Last year was so as well, and we really hope that you're gonna join us on this journey, of supporting fully improvised music. all of those kinds of engagement online may sometimes feel quite empty. But I think we feel that we're really part of an active community, and we're really reaching out, asking people to engage and to, yeah, send us a like, a follow, a share, or buying the album, or watching the videos, or telling your friends. Those things really do matter in time, and we really feel like there is space for the online to kind of be infused with more improvisation, and then that can change people's perspectives about what it is to sing, what it is to sing collectively, what it is to improvise. Anything to add on that, Guillermo? I knew it.
Yes, sorry, I had a sneeze,
Bless you.
which is captured in record and AI as well. Uh, yes, I think it is. I, I don't. I don't think of this as something that we endeavor to do, but it will be so nice if we can help to, in the next years, to change what the general public thinks about music that is made in the moment as opposed to music that is written and produced, because I feel it's been quite devalued, and only by I think only by listening to it and finding each other and supporting each other in our YouTube channels and all of that, it can begin to have more space, more airspace, and more credibility in a way for for whatever promoters, venue organizers, people who might pay a ticket to attend an event like this. So for me, your support is not so much to support us anthropos, but to support a change of paradigm in how this kind of music is received and shared. I really hope that in my lifetime this can change.
Definitely. We're on the way. I don't see any raised hands yet. You're all being very polite, but I know there's lots of people here that know us. Oh, there we go. First one from April. Yes, go ahead. Feel free to unmute and
Yeah,
share.
thank you. Sublime, just beautiful. And I loved what Guillermo said there, really, because I think it also, in what happens perhaps in the moment of collaborating with place and time, as well as the voices, is that unexpected things and real things, true things happen that maybe weren't planned or are born of that moment of something happening maybe somewhere else, but it impacts and influences what happens in the song, and that is I think important for these times. So yeah, thank you. That was
Thank
just
you.
beautiful. I
Yes, the
loved also
true.
the way Sylvia sometimes seemed to be turning towards the trees or to the stones themselves and actually singing to them. It's like I think sometimes we do this thing of we talk about collaborating with place, and yet we treat it like a stage rather than rather than another being to interact with, like you talked about. And sometimes that involves turning away from the humans to share, to actually actively embrace those beings that are in place and to give space to hear what they might have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And that is definitely was part of our process, and maybe the part that was not shown, right? Was how we entered the space, how much time we spent singing with the environment without focusing on each other. And the fact that we were on a residency on the couple of days before, which really allowed us to land in Slovenia, to be in the forest, to walk around, to share food, and all the rest, and before we did the concert itself. And also, Laurel is asking in the chat, yeah, if the stones and sticks were from the cave, um, they were from the cave itself. So,
From the cave and from the wood. The
and
sticks were
from the
from the
woods
wood.
around.
We
Yeah.
collected them. Yeah.
So the stones were from the cave itself, and then the sticks were just from the area around. And we were also experimenting with a larger group of people. We did a little recording, which is part of another project. So we just had a couple of really fun days. And what was really special is the fact that we were able to visit the cave multiple times. So again, we're really thankful to the people who are managing it, that we're able to go in, sing, have a moment, come back out, do it again, and bring people in, which was really useful to our process. Oh, yes. Any other raised hands at this stage? Did that inspire any questions? Yeah, Daniel May, go ahead.
And Becca, I think, as well.
Okay. Sorry, I had to switch on audio, of course. I wonder, what exactly did you choose to perform with public when recording that? Did you did you think about just performing alone in the cave without any public? Do you think that the public was essential for the process, or um, what's your I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that, having public in the performance.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, so the presence of the public. Anyone could answer if anyone feels strongly.
Am I correct that we're also releasing 10 songs that we filmed without anyone else in the not filmed, recorded without anyone else, without any audience. Is that correct, Shaka?
Yes, we are also releasing some without the audience, but I would say most of our time in the cave was witnessed by people, and also we sang with them more than was shown on the recordings. So again, there was a part actually after those last ending big chords. Then we all walked to the third space, which has this massive stalagmite or stalagmite, I don't know the word in English, but a cave column which stretches from ceiling to the ground, and we all stood around it and did a circle song. So the audience was kind of involved more than you saw, and at least for me, that always feels different. We can conjure a similar space, but when there are people witnessing actively, it just adds to how we make music together. When there's a village, when there's a community, when there is kind of active witnessing, to me that always feels more natural and more easeful and more normal in a way, and easier to kind of connect also between ourselves and to sing from the place that we sing from, at least for me.
I would disagree.
Great, please do.
I think that sometimes when we're sinking into the space and meeting the space for the first time without audience there, we sometimes go to really interesting places, and it feels like a research about an internal external research. And as soon as an audience enters, you kind of enter a slightly heightened space, and they're just different, and they can both yield really beautiful experiences. I wouldn't say one feels more natural to me than the other.
Yeah, but it's really nice when they also connect, when the heightened is still related to the solo practice, when there's a thread. And that's what I maybe meant, that's really beautiful to be able to have alone time and to explore all kinds of things and then have a thread to the heightened with other people. And when those are connected and we're able to travel from one to the other, that feels very special as well. And Guillermo?
Yes, yes to both, to what you both said, but also the audience were not an audience in the sense that they had spent a couple of days with me and Yaka as part of a workshop, and they had been exploring the roots of spontaneous collective song with us. So they were very much a part of it. And one of the things that we really wanted to convey was the difference between performing and sharing. And when we worked in the flat space in the cave, it was very much for us a sharing where there were like concentric circles and people were holding us with their sound. So we were not singing for them but with them, and they were singing with us. And then the part where we are in the big cave, well, the geography of the cave had the shape of a stage, but for me the audience were really, how to put this into language, there was no difference between the audience and the stones. There were beings that were with us.
Makes sense. It's kind of true. Yeah. And although the concept was at the beginning of that workshop, right? So that was on day one. So people just only met, but they were still able to enter that space with us. I want to direct us to two really interesting questions in the chat. One about archetypes and defining what that means to us, and the other one about the use of prompts in practicing or in performance. So I think they're kind of linked because they go to the nitty-gritty of what we plan or not, or how we practice. And since we do practice archetypes and prompts, let's say something about that. Any of us can. But maybe Guillermo, you can start. Archetypes and prompts.
Okay. So because part of the foundational concepts of Anthropos and of how we make music are based on reimagine how and why our faraway ancestors made music, we use a lot of imagery in order to go together to a certain expressive space without having to prescribe anything. So sometimes the archetypes are archetypal emotions that we will name and share and sing about. And sometimes the archetypes are more connected with all the voices that reside inside each one of us and that we can call out. So they are voices that have a different meaning for each one of us, but that we can all connect with. So the voice of an old person that lives inside of us, the voice of a child, the voice of somebody who is in pain, the voice of somebody who is celebrating something, and sometimes the voice of an aspect of nature. So it's very broad. I hope I'm responding to you, Jenny, but it's very broad, but it's connected with simply with ways that we have to connect with ourselves and with the music and with an expressive space that we can share. I don't know if anybody can add something to
Yes,
that.
and really in that sense, the archetypes can be the prompts, right? So they're one and the same. And sometimes I would say that over time we have developed our own internal archetypes, or at least I have places that we go, characters that we come back to. And then I would say sometimes in practice mode, we do like to set ourselves clear prompts, although not so much recently. I think we've done a lot more of that at the beginning, and we did more kind of defined practice of different archetypal spaces, moods, environments. And then over time, it opened up beautifully into a space where we can just sing together and they emerge by themselves or in conversation with the landscape or audience. So they're not practiced anymore as definedly, but they were, especially in the first couple of years. And maybe a question for Kate and Silva is really about the sound of Anthropos, because we were on such a journey from, we were meeting, I don't know, in our second year, and we were saying, I don't know, is this Anthropos? I'm not sure. Is this an Anthropos sound or not? Am I singing an Anthropos thing or not? And then kind of, I think it settled and it became clearer, but I would love to hear a little bit about your individual journeys and perspectives on that.
I can share a little bit until Sylvia is back with us. I think it was funny that we started really by defining what Anthropos was not. And so we would sing something and go, that wasn't it. And you don't quite know what you're looking for, but you can feel when it's not there. So and that sometimes can be hard to pin down musically exactly what's not Anthropos, especially because we're all drawing on our own musical backgrounds. You know, I'm a classically trained singer, and like even in that cave recording, there is a moment where I was like, oh, that was a very classical run. So I was like, I slipped that in. A little bit naughty to sound quite classical at that moment. But you can't also deny the parts of you that come out in improv. You can't always erase yourself in that way. So it's more about like digging down and finding, like Yaku was saying, other archetypes, other sides of yourself that do feel relevant for the concept, relevant for the research. I don't know if you want to add anything, Sylvia.
Yeah, I guess it really took a while for us to identify what as Kate said, strip back stuff that's not belonging in this world, and then sort of notice the things that really fit that sound like they come out of community, that sound like something a group of people would sing together, where it's not about one person sticking out, but a sharing and holding of whatever is going on in the communal space and time. And then also, like as Jaka was mentioning, there are certain personas we have found in ourselves that just seem to really fit, and it really helps me when sometimes I can't connect. We are playing a gig and you have to deliver the goods, and I'm just like, I'm not in it, I'm not feeling the world, what's happening. And if I really think about like children playing in nature, or I think about a community coming together and getting immersed in the wash of work, that there's a like very triggering clear images for me that just put me in that space. And then I don't feel like I have to make a voice or a part. I feel like there's a voice coming out of me that just goes like, that just sits in that space, and it's just ripened with time, of searching for it over and over, and then trying to hold on to the things that really work, that were very distinct. And I think also I guess we all know this from improvising, for those of you who do improvise, that feeling of waiting until you really have something to say and then say it, and not letting something out for the sake of I should be performing right now. I don't know if that really belongs into Anthropos world, but just
Yes,
general.
yes. And there are lots of options of what we do when we don't have that calling, because we do or try to do a lot of more unison and harmonizing. And there's all kinds of things you can do to support someone else's idea. And then when something really strong emerges, then you might, bring it to the forefront. But I think we've been also practicing a lot of those ways of musically relating, the simplicity, the return to unison, the way we slowly shift our musical ideas and not overpack the musical space. And now, if you agree, one more musical sharing feels like the right moment before we finish. Okay, Guillermo, finish the thoughts and then we will.
Yeah, there was a question from Laura that was left unanswered.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Feel free
and
to answer.
I mean, I would just say that we've been through a 4 or 5 year process. I lost track of time. Bye bye. And in the beginning, there were lots of prompts that we explored, and they were a bit of a way. They were ways to learn how to connect and how to listen to each other. So there were also formal prompts. Okay, let's do a piece where we are two duets that coalesce in the end, for example. So we worked a lot with prompts and constraints in the beginning, but I suppose every time that we share with people, we let go of those and we let the music speak. So the prompts were more like a way to exercise musculature of connection and relating, and then they were put aside when we went into performance or recording or sharing mode. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes. And before we were talking about prompts and archetypes, and now you also mentioned prompts and form, which is really interesting, the sort of non-musical, the way that you can build a piece starting from a solo or starting from everyone, narrowing it down to one. And it's quite brilliant how now those things occur in real time, and it's always so satisfying to see them come back
Yeah,
from the
and
subconsciousness.
there are more layers. Like there are prompts that are timbric or prompts that were based on the characters. I
Yeah.
think Becca and Eve had a question as well, and Daniel is
Yes.
raising his hand again.
Yes, yes. I think we're going to go to Rebecca first. And just to say that we have more coming to you, including a toolkit for improvisation that is based and related with our Arts Council project that we did last year. And also, this pedagogy is emerging, and sometimes we teach it together. Sometimes Guillermo teaches it under the name of the Singing Village. So there's more for you to discover, and I'm sure we're going to have these conversations again. Rebecca, yes, go ahead.
Hey, firstly, like we were just both so incredibly moved and inspired. So thank you so much for taking the time to share this. Yeah, I really want to be there in person for like the next time that's happening. And yeah, I think this idea of like having an audience who you've done 2 days of workshops with or whatever it was before, and then that being the audience, I guess my question kind of connects to that, and like wondering how it seemed to me like the concert in the cave was so like culturally situated, like it sounded like so Eastern European, like the a lot of the kind of modes, and just like it was just kind of like so there. And I just wonder how much that kind of comes from like being connected to an audience that are local people, and like being with that kind of the whole kind of place and culture there, and whether when you as a group perform in a completely different place, like do you find like that like a culturally kind of like different sound just kind of emerges in a different place? That's kind of the question.
Yes, yes, okay. We have a lot to say about that. First of all, I really want to mention Zvezdana Novakovic, Sven, again, as our guest on this concert, as someone who lives in Slovenia, someone who studies folk music of Slovenia and especially Bulgaria over the last decades. And we're so happy to have her, and that definitely influenced the sound in a great, great way. It's also part of my research, but I'm kind of embarking on it now, but she's been doing it for a long time. And that was a beautiful thing to have as part of the concert. I want to relate this question to our Arts Council project and singing in a care home, and in this case, a care home with particularly Jewish people, because it felt like that might be something that we can relate it to, of how our sound actually changes in different settings. But maybe you have another example. Would love to hear from either of you Anthropos members on that. Guillermo?
Yeah, just very briefly. That's what I was trying to say when I said that there was no difference between the people who were there and the stones. And Kiara sent me a message saying, you have to be careful what context you say that. But what I meant is that for me, the environment, the land, and the people are completely informing the music, and we cannot control that, but it has happened very clearly. And I think the example you are inviting us to reflect on, the working in the care home, the music definitely had many overtones of the aliveness of the people who were in the room. I think that's what's being captured, is aliveness in different forms.
Yeah, and very different parts of ourselves come to play, and the sound can drastically shift, even though it still has, its particularities. Kate?
I would just add, though, that what we are not doing is addressing or trying to draw on a particular genre. I'm not going and trying to sound Eastern European or draw on Jewish tradition or, yeah. So that's definitely because I think then you're just performing a pastiche rather than truly responding to the parts of yourself that are become alive because of the space or whoever's in the room. So it is an interesting space to be in because, yeah, you're not attempting to change, but you do. And you're not trying to be anyone else other than who you are. And you have your own history, your own, ancestry, and yet that responds in relationship with other people's ancestry and other people's existence in the space. And I think that's really important to point out. Yeah.
And your sense of self, I think, definitely expands. And I think it sometimes encompasses the whole room, So you have the liminal spaces in between who you are and who other people are in the room. And I'm sure that can also be deepened. So I have experiences of, like, for instance, if you go to an environment, stay there, and then study the local folk music, right? Then you can deepen that environment, and then maybe you're going to lean more into that direction and become more embedded and start sounding even more in that way. And I think that's a little bit of what happens to us, but not as fully. So it's something that I think could be also deepened if we wanted to. But I think it's quite exciting for us to also go in various environments and see that liminal shift, the way it interacts with something in a quite a fresh way. Yes, Guillermo.
And for me, that really dissolves some, let's say, artistic and ethical concerns I had of like, am I appropriating music from here or there? And instead to realize that if we are in a place and in a land that has a story and a folklore, we will be influenced by that, and to sing that as it comes through us uniquely can be a form of honoring rather than a form of taking.
Yes. And also inviting, people from that land to have a very actual active exchange, and listening and be really involved with that process. Sylvia.
Yeah, I just feel like, I was talking about how this Anthropos world is very much about the communal sound, and I find that when we've collaborated with other musicians or mainly singers, it always feels like we just like make this basket, and the person kind of falls in, and they sit there and bring whatever they're bringing for a bit, and then we're slowly like the roots, they interweave with what is there, and then we raise in this together. And I think that really comes from this open space that is about the communal making and not about one person taking center stage. And that I find it works really nicely in collaborative contexts. And I look forward to doing more of that for sure.
Definitely. So our art form, in that sense, collaborative folk improvisation can be that basket, can be that catalyst, can be that tool for communication and holding and exchange and transformation. I think it's really, this is a great moment to show our last video before we finish, because it's a part of a series of our transcultural collaborations, in this case with Adriano Adewale, who is a percussionist based in London, but originally from Brazil. And we would just like to show a premiere of a recording from our upcoming album. We have another album. First, we released the Cave album, and then we released this one later in the year. But now, let's share this video with you, a recording that was made last May, of course, again, fully improvised, and then we can conclude this gathering of ours. Okay. All that to come on the upcoming album. So subscribe. Stay in touch. That was quite a beautiful ending. Is there anything that you would like to say about that recording? Of course, you can share in the chat your last thoughts, our dear listeners.
Thank you, everyone, for spending these 2 hours with us. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your attention.
And your questions and your contributions. And of course, stay in touch and share. And as I've said before, this will all be available on our YouTube channel and Bandcamp. So those are the spaces that you can check. Since you've registered, you're also going to receive an email with it. I'm pasting the links again in the chat. The concert will be up in a short while, so will be the collaborations with the dancers, and you'll be able to see also the third part, the circle singing that you didn't see. And then this last video is from an upcoming album for the latter part of this year. But we also have more content from last year, more intercultural collaborations from some concerts in London as well, with the kora player, Mauritius singer, and more. Thank you, Siobhan, as well, and Tia and Basia and Laura and Heather, all that are commenting and all that were not named. Yes, and Guillermo is saying, please visit our YouTube and follow us. Yes, please do. Please do. And of course, we're always available if you want to send us any questions at any time. Invite us to perform, invite us to teach. Those are all open options. And we are in multiple countries in Europe, but we are happy to travel, make things happen in the UK and further afield. Okay. Thank you all very much. I will play us out with some
Thank
music.
you for being with us tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So much, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for sharing.
Feel free to unmute, say thank you, goodbye,
Goodbye.
and see you next time. Bye.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.
Oh, you